1 second here.
Okay, thank you. All right, so welcome and thank you for attending today's meeting of the San Francisco Children and Youth Fund Oversight and Advisory Committee. It's nice to see you all in the new year, and I hope each of your holiday seasons were well. We ask that everyone please mute themselves when not speaking to avoid sound interference. If you're a member of the public and would like to speak, please raise your hand and I will call you for public comment. Just as a reminder, comments are limited to 2 minutes per speaker. The first item on the agenda is call to order and roll call. Dory, can you please start the roll call?
Okay, Member John Henry.
Present.
Chair Jada Curry.
Present.
Member Aaron Yen.
Present.
Member Andre Torrey. Okay, I believe that, and Member Andre Torrey and Leslie Simmons are actually joining this meeting. They're just running a bit late. And Vice Chair Molly Matul and Julie Roberts-Fung are both excused from today's meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dory. All right, moving on to our second item, general public comment. Raphael, are there any, is there any public comment for items not listed on the agenda?
There are no public comments at this moment.
Okay, seeing none, public comment is closed. And we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the review and approval of the November 2022, that's hard to say, minutes. Raphael, is there any public comment on this item?
No, there are not.
Okay, seeing none, public comment is closed. Are there any comments from the committee on November's meeting minutes?
Do not see
All right.
comments.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes? All those in favor say aye. Oh, go ahead.
Chair Jada, we're not going to be able to do a vote. We don't have a quorum.
Oh,
So
that's right, that's right.
So Leslie will be joining shortly, and Dre had confirmed earlier that he will be joining the call. So I suggest that we wait on the vote for those items.
Okay, and do we only need one more person to join to then return to this item, or both?
Or actually, maybe we do have a quorum. Maria, you look like you're about to confirm that we do have a quorum.
So as long as we have majority of OAC members present, of active OAC members, because Dora, you've done such a great job in recruiting OAC members. Can you tell me what is our final number right now? I can't seem to find it easily. So we have 3 members here.
Yeah, and I think there's a total of 7.
I think there are 7. So
Yeah.
yeah, we do need 4. We just need one more person.
It looks like Dre
Okay.
just hopped on.
Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah.
Good afternoon, y'all. Sorry for being late.
No worries.
Thanks for joining.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so does that mean we can jump right into the roll call vote? Okay.
Sorry.
No,
Okay.
no worries.
Okay. Member John.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, we need to. I'm sorry. Before I interrupted you, Chair Jada, you were going to. You were waiting for a motion. That's where we left off.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right,
Second.
and
Second.
okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Dory, can you please take a roll call vote?
Okay. Member John.
Aye.
Chair Jada.
Aye.
Member Aaron.
Aye.
Member Andre.
Aye.
Roll call is complete.
All right,
sorry.
thank you, Dory.
Thank you.
Okay, The next item on the agenda is the resolution to allow teleconference meetings. Raphael, is there any public comment on this item?
There are no public comments at this moment.
All right, seeing none. Committee members, do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
Just one quick question. This is I just might need a little refresher. I've been off for a little bit. This is just to approve that we can meet on Zoom, right? Like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Dory, can you please take a roll call vote?
Sure. Member John,
Aye.
Chair Jada,
Aye.
Member Aaron,
Aye.
Member Andre.
Aye.
Okay, motion approved.
All right, thank you, Dory. Okay, so now we've got through all of that, so we can move into the meat of our meeting. So the next item is the budget presentation by Heidi. So Heidi, I will go ahead and hand it over to you.
All right. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm gonna share screen, I think, unless Raph, thank you. Looks like you're gonna share. I'll just get started here. Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. I'm going to run through several of these slides this afternoon to share the budget instructions for fiscal year 23-24, 24-25, the information provided by the mayor's office, detail that we see in base budget, and allow most of our time to go into detail about the DCYF budget we will submit next month, and allow a lot of time for questions specifically about our departmental budget. So at the beginning of this slideshow, I'm going to go through several slides very quickly that are sort of big picture citywide financial information that's all in your packet, and I'm happy to discuss any of it, but rather than spending a lot of time on those, I want to get to the DCYF part. So please forgive me if I am breezing through slides quickly at the beginning, and by all means, let me know at the end. We can go back and revisit anything. All right, next slide, please. This slide just shows you the budget timeline. Where we are now is in the thick of developing our departmental budget proposal. It'll go in by February 21st. So we got the instructions for the two-year budget cycle last month. We are about the midpoint developing our departmental submission. That goes in February. Regular process. Generally, the budget is enacted in late July, retroactive to July 1st. So that's just to let you know where we are in this timeline. Next slide, please. Again, just the key dates, and the main one we're really focused on at this point is the February 21st departmental budget submission due date. Next slide, please. So the city's fiscal outlook, the 5-year report has come out. Some of the major assumptions are bulleted below. I'll just call out a couple of key points. Slow to no growth in major tax revenues, loss of federal revenues and other one-time sources, and that includes disaster relief funding. The assumptions also incorporate the November 2022 election results, which includes a new set aside for schools. For salary and benefits, we have 7.2 rate of return on pension investments is assumed, and also CPI on non-personnel costs. So this is the bigger picture citywide. Next slide, please. All of that to set up kind of the main takeaway from this slide. This is the financial forecast. At the bottom of this, you'll see a 2-year deficit is projected of 728 million. So last year, when we reviewed the budget outlook a year ago, the projection at that point for 2 years was 108 million surplus. The next 2 years, which at that point showed a deficit of 190. So with new information, the 2-year deficit is 728. So that's a significant increase in deficit. Again, tied to some things we go through in the next slides. Next slide, please. This just details some of the revenue detail that supports that deficit finding, a deficit projection. Next slide. So on the expenditure growth side, we have some drivers that include salary and benefits, operating and other program costs. The last budget made significant ongoing wage investments, and healthcare costs continue to exceed inflation. Other major costs, new baseline for schools, fully funding the 10-year capital plan, debt service, local housing subsidy, health and human services costs, and increased pension costs from the prior projection. Next slide. Just a graph showing pension contribution. Next slide. Some risks and uncertainties, the pace of downtown recovery and office vacancies, high inflation and interest rates are having an impact, continued cutbacks in the tech sector and other local industries, state budget funding of excess ERAF, and risk of a recession. So this current projection that we have of a deficit of 728 million over 2 years does not include a recession scenario. So there is certainly that risk, which might add additional need for cuts. Next slide. The funding priorities are recovery of the local economy with a focus on downtown and our economic core, improving public safety and street conditions, reducing homelessness and transforming mental health service delivery, and accountability and equity in services and spending. Next slide. With that said, all of the news I've shared in the previous slides come to our major instruction. Like all departments, we're required to implement a 5% general fund reduction in fiscal year 23-24 and 8% in 24-25. Next slide, please. Instructions also include prioritized filling or reclassifying our vacancies for core departmental functions and mayoral priorities. Propose remaining vacancies for budget savings if needed. Maintain mayoral initiatives and recommend ways to fund more efficiently and prepare for the outlook to worsen. Next slide, please. This is just a picture of our DCYF budget. So I'll point out District in orange, 104. We have Free City College, 16.9, and DCYF operating at 199. Next slide. And for the DCYF operating, this just shows you the fund. So 34% of that is general fund, 64% is children and youth fund. Federal and state grants make up the remaining 2%. So our fund cut target of 5% applies to the general fund portion only. Next slide. This slide, I recall our discussion a year ago. It's a lot of detail. I'll just call out a few pieces that I want to focus on, and I'm happy to dig into any questions after we go through this one and the next one, which we'll highlight some more info. So this just lists the budget by fiscal year, and the midpoint fiscal year 23-24 base change from 22-23 base. So it just shows you the change over time. The base budget is what we're starting with, and we'll work on this to develop our departmental budget. So here, what we see a reduction, and I think the main point that I'm guessing folks will zero in on is a city grant program, a reduction of the change from basis down 16.8 million. So I can go into some detail to explain that to you, but the main point I want to make is that we're not concerned about that at this point. This line includes one-time funding that has expired. It includes, as year over year, we have one-time funds that leave, we have one-time funds that come in. Between now and February, when we submit our departmental budget, we expect to have additional work order funds and budget from JPD, which will be budgeted in this line. We know some of the one-time funds that have expired funded work that's now over. So the funding is over and then the work is completed. We expect other funds to be budgeted here. We also have fund balance in the Children and Youth Fund. So we have to make our 5% cut general fund, which for DCYF amounts to 2.8 million next year. We do not anticipate reducing our FTE. We have a departmental goal of keeping our grant funding for CBOs whole. So when you look at this slide and see a reduction by 16.8 million at this point, we do not anticipate cutting anything by 16.8. This is a point in time base budget, and we expect a large percentage of this change will be addressed in our departmental budget between fund balance and Children and Youth, additional work order funds that are identified and added to budget. To meet our general fund cut target, we are going through professional services contract unspent budget this year. We're looking for any unspent funds this year that would suggest we could make reductions in next year's budget, again, so that we can make our cut target without cutting any grant funds. Next slide, please. This slide details that 16.8 a little more. So again, just noting under the city grant program account line, we have expectations that when we present the departmental budget next month, we will have addressed much of this by identifying fund balance and Children and Youth Fund to budget here, possible backfill of JPD work order, the Student Success Fund from the November ballot, some expenditures may be budgeted here. So I think the main takeaway I want to have folks have here is we're not looking at a cut of 16.8. This is the base budget, and I'm just presenting our base budget against current year budget, but it's not what we expect to submit in February. Next slide. All right, and we've run through the slides quickly. I'm sure there are questions. I'd be happy to answer any, either in chat, I'll take a look now, or if you want to ask questions in the meeting, I think Raf can help with that.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation, Heidi. We'll start with public comment. Raphael, is there any public comment on this item?
I do not see any public comments. No hands are raised.
Okay, then seeing none, any committee discussion on this item or questions?
Chair Curry, can I just very quickly, I just want to emphasize again that DCYF is very committed to ensuring that our CBOs are kept whole from the base grant that DCYF provides. We are going to work really hard to ensure continuity of services, as what we have done over the last several years. We're just super grateful for the partnership that we have, not only with our CBOs, but with our city departments. And I know that this budget cycle and this budget year and next year is going to be pretty tough for the other city departments that rely heavily on general fund. So I just want all of us to hold that as well as we think about how our funds are relatively kept whole, how we partner even more strategically and closer with our city departments. Thank you.
Aaron, you could go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Curry, and thank you, Maria, for that context and back end, and thank you, Heidi, for that presentation. I totally understand around this kind of reduction in funding. I think my question, and that's great, Maria. I know how it feels. I know that must be a sigh of relief for a lot of CBOs when they hear we're keeping the funding whole. So that's fantastic. I'm just curious in terms of that funding loss or reduction. And I get the context in the back end, because obviously this is happening across citywide departments and things of that nature. One of the things that I want to see within that 16+ million, was that service like programs, programming, one-time programming? And the reason why I ask is because even for us at DPH, when we're doing this COVID thing, a lot of that has been dissolved, and federal funding has been cut back. And so some of the programming that was in place were found to be extremely helpful. Even in a long-term strategy. So there's ways of thinking and looking through our own program and how can we keep this kind of consistently going without the funding. I wonder if that 16 plus million addressed several gaps that were already existing. I'm sure it was, but I'm sure it was also unique situations. But just wondering if that comes into play and if have CBOs talked around that piece at all.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. It's a combination of things. So like what Heidi said, this is a snapshot of where we are now, right? So this is just our budget at this moment. We still have a few more weeks to work with our city departments around work order negotiations. So we're not assuming departments going to continue work orders, and that's why we're being very conservative. But we do know that most likely city departments like JPD will continue their work orders with us. And if JPD moves forward with their work orders, that large number that you saw will be significantly reduced. But because we haven't confirmed that, we can't say that right now. The same goes for several other departments. So right now is when all the departments are negotiating with each other. So that's one. The other thing is that there were several one-time add backs that were provided to us that's going to fall out. And those are just one-time commitments. Our CBOs know that they were one-time. Although, as we all know, CBOs would like for it to be more than one time. But unfortunately, when the monies came to us, they came only as a one-time allocation. So those will fall out, and you'll see some of that in that large number. There were other one-time dollars that were passed through our department into school district. So I think, as you all know, the mayor made lots of commitments to continue to support our school district for a number of things. And so some of those dollars pass through our budget. And so that's why you see that happen as well. So it shows up in our budget as a amount that sits in our budget. And because, you know, our school district is a partner, a city grantee, so it shows up there. But outside of that, there are no grants to CBOs that are on a continual basis or CBOs that are within our 5-year cycle. There are no cuts to those CBOs. Heidi, am I misstating anything?
No, that's all correct. I was going to go into a lot of detail about the ins and outs. The bottom line is just looking at this number between the one-time funds that pass through the school district and what I reasonably think we will see confirmed in work orders. That's, you know, between 9 and 10 million just at a first pass of the 16.8, and the remaining we have other one-time funds that we may identify. We have a lot of options to use revenue to make this whole. So it's a number that does not feel concerning, which is a very unusual place to be in this, you know, budget cycle for a city department. So I feel confident both with the general fund cut that we target that we need to make, and with this base budget showing a decrease of 16.8, that we will be able to address both and keep our CBO funding whole. So I appreciate both the reality that it looks like a scary number, and also when I go through the detail, it's explainable, it's understandable, and we have a real expectation of addressing that through, again, the work orders and the other funding that we'll be confirming in the February submission.
No, thank you. Thank you, Heidi and Maria. I know that wasn't, I'm sure there was a lot of moving pieces before all this was explained. So kudos to you guys for making that whole, because I just know the anxiety that folks would have just looking at it. But for some of us knowing the back end, I know it's more complicated than just that number itself. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And reality is, you know, DPH's reduction is real. And your department's reduction are real. And so I think that's, I understand where you're coming from in terms of your concerns around these big numbers. Thank you.
All right, is there any other committee discussion on this item? All right, so I'll go ahead. I just have one question, and sorry if this is a repeat. I just wanted to know, will the proposed 5% general fund reduction cause any major cutbacks to program rollouts this particular fiscal year, kind of like our 415 or summer programming that DCYF has supported previously?
No, at this point, as we look at ways to meet our cut target, we're starting with professional services contracts, budgets that's unspent. So all things that would be, painless to CBOs. So at this point, I'm confident that we will be able to find cuts that would not affect any grant funding. Again, also to repeat here, just because it impacts our CBOs. At this point, we're not looking at reduction of staff in any way either. So we have some relatively, compared to citywide picture, less painful ways to make these cut targets. So not concerning at this point.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the presentation, Heidi. I think you did a really good job of condensing all this information to a good way. Thank you. Okay, all right, so moving on to the next item on the agenda. The next item is coordinated communications for children, youth, and families, which is a presentation that Dory is going to give us. So Dory, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chair Jada, and hello again to the members of the OAC and members of the public. One more time, my name is Dory Caminong, and I lead community engagement and communication strategies for DCYF. And it's my pleasure to check in and provide a high-level overview of the Our 415 Coordinated Communication for Children, Youth, and Families initiative. Okay. So in May 2021, Raf, can you go on to the next slide, please? Okay, thank you. In May of 2021, the Mayor's Office tasked DCYF to lead the development of a citywide children and family recovery plan with the intention of elevating and addressing the urgent needs of the city's children, young adults, and families who've been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The report for the Mayor's Children and Family Recovery Plan was released in February of 2022, and in May of 2022, the Mayor announced her proposed budget allocating funding to 4 new initiatives from the plan, which includes the $3.7 million investment over 2 years in improving the citywide communication, referral, and navigation of children's services. With this funding, the city will be able to create a service inventory or a database of children's programs, making it easier for families to learn more about what's available and to sign up for existing services. Next slide. So the key components include messaging coordination. So messaging coordination across the city departments that serve children, youth, and transitional age youth and families, and SFUSD to centralize messages about programs, initiatives, resources, and supports. The rebranding of the sfamilies.org resource website, where coordinated messages are centralized using a feed, calendar, and searchable database for access to city and city-funded programs, and message dissemination through social and traditional media and through community messengers to ensure wide awareness. Next slide. So this is DCYF's role. Next slide, please. We will build on the city's successful model of the Joint Information Center during the COVID-19 state of emergency. We will staff in-house communications studio providing streamlined interagency services in key areas of translation services, community engagement and outreach, and graphic and digital design. We will create easy-to-use, centralized, and more efficient experiences for youth and families in their search and navigation of city and city-funded programs and services. We will create a centralized calendar and features section for event promotion, and we'll create a new monthly coordinated communication for children, youth, and families working group of communication leads or dedicated staff from agencies serving children, youth, and families, which includes leveraging existing city stakeholder and policy groups to audit current tools and set agenda for improving the experience for our youth and families. So here's a snapshot of our 415, which is currently in development, which will include the curated feed, calendar, and searchable service inventory site or programs. So coordinated communication for children, youth, and families is definitely a mouthful. And so what we wanted to do is create a name that would create a sense of identity, a sense of belonging, a sense of community for our city's children, youth, and families. So we kind of locked in our 415, and what we hope to do is promote that destination site for all things children, youth, and families in the city. So our 415 will launch at our annual San Francisco Summer Resource Fair on Saturday, February 11th, 2023. It takes place from 11 to 2 p.m. and this event is hosted annually by DCYF and the Rec and Park Department, the County Fair Building in Golden Gate Park. This event features over 100 summer camps, classes, programs, and services for children in grades K to 8, many including free or low-cost summer programs and services. On-site enrollment may be available on the spot, and interpretation services will be available on-site in Mandarin, Cantonese, and Spanish. We will be hosting tons of family-friendly games and good times, including a college savings workshop for families, interactive activities at exhibitor tables, and giveaways. So at this event, we expect an audience between 1,500 to 2,000 families from all across the city. So we ask that you spread the word. And so we will be launching our 415 at this event. We will be signing up families to the site to make sure that we will be able to stay in touch with them. So our 415 will be a website, and it will have social media presence on various channels, and we will be sure to be pushing it out across the city on traditional media platforms as well. So please spread the word. And the next slide, please. Okay, that's the Summer Resource Fair. I don't know if any of our current members have attended the event. We encourage you to go. And as the lead of community engagement and communications at DCYF, I am very happy to be back in person for one of our DCYF sponsored events. So yay. Okay, so next slide. That's the end of the presentation. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dory, for this wonderful update. And just want to say, I absolutely love the name that was chosen. All right, we'll go ahead with public comment. Raphael, is there any public comment on this item?
There are no public comments at this moment.
All right, seeing none, public comment is closed. Is there any committee discussion on this item?
I just wanted to ask Dory if we could do like a presentation on our educational Thursdays. I think I see this centralized communication, and I've been trying to help, and a lot of it's still a lot of information coming back to the community. A lot of folks in D10 are still saying that they're not getting information on these resources. So I would love to have you do a presentation, and then I'll help put out the flyers as well. So any way we can help get any of that information out, I would love to help, because people are still emailing like they don't know how to get connected with the resources.
Absolutely. Thank you, Member John. I would love to come on an episode of both sides of the conversation. Or Maria.
To that point, not about the podcast. To that point, I think that that's a real problem where a lot of our families don't know. And so this is why the mayor asked us to create something to help families become aware, to know, to understand what the city is offering. And what we've come to realize is that it's more than just one thing. It has to be a multi-pronged approach to really get the word out, to get families, even if you tell families, oh yeah, there's this program, you got to do it in different places. They have to keep seeing it. They have to trust that that's a place that's for them. So part of our 415 is just the website platform, but there's a much larger coordinated system that Dory's leading, that she walked by really quickly about, she talked really quickly about, but it's really bringing together all the public information officers in the city. So we will be convening these conversations with all the communication leads for city departments so that we can all use common language, that we're more consistent when we're talking about what types of services we're providing. And then from there, we want to make sure that our CBOs have the resources to do the outreach and the referrals and all of these things, so that they are, at places where families and young people are. And then we're going to rely on you all to help also spread that message. So once again, it is a definitely multi-pronged approach to just make sure that we blanket this entire city with the knowledge of all the resources that the city offers them. So thank you, John, for saying that and for stepping up to make sure that you're helping.
No problem. Thank you all.
All right, Leslie, you can go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. And thank you, Dory, for walking us through that presentation. It's very exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing how folks are able to leverage this. And Maria actually answered a good amount of my question, because I was going to ask a bit more information. I think you mentioned, in addition to the sort of convening of public information officers, which is just amazing on its own, is there a plan to have sustained help? Are you at whatever point hiring staff to support this effort so that it will continue? I thought I heard you mention that. I just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we all know that websites and emails and even text messages will only go so far. A lot of our families, actually everybody, needs to have that human connection in order to build this trust, right? I always say, progress moves at the rate of trust. And so it's really about building that connection to our families. And, we're unveiling our 415 at the Summer Resource Fair because we know that there'll be lots of families there. And we want to make sure that families enroll and see a person that they can connect to, whether that's talking to Dory or to myself or to any of DCYF staff, so that they can really understand when they're signing up for this, it's not just signing up for, some random email. It's really signing up for resources that we within DCYF are really promoting and supporting. So to answer your question, yes, we'll be hiring up more staff. Dory's going to build a little mini army within her unit so that she can really have that warm connection when people call or when we're out in the community. Dory, do you want to speak a little bit more, or was that enough of a teaser for folks?
No, that's perfect. I mean, I think what folks, the magic of the Joint Information Center was the fact that you had this centralized effort around just translation services. You had the graphic and design talent all centralized, and you also had that army of community engagement that's happening there. So we really want to build on that legacy and ensure that we're doing it for our folks. And the reason why it's our 415 is because we're in it together. It is not an us and them, and we really want to be partners in this. And thank you, Maria, for articulating kind of like the full vision of this effort. I was just giving a high level in parts, but the beauty of the initiative is the fact that we will have people on the ground and making sure that we are all going to be brand ambassadors essentially for the services available to children, youth, and families across the city.
That's wonderful. Thank you both so much. Congrats for getting to this point.
Thank you.
All right, Aaron, you can go ahead.
Yeah, no, first of all, I just want to Yeah, thank you so much, Dory, for that presentation. And I love R415. I love that name. I love the resource fair. I tabled there for many years. And I think on one side, just want to let you know, Dory, I could also help on the back end. Maybe I'll connect with you offline in terms of, we also have a youth focus effort currently right now with support for COVID response. And it would be great to kind of, once this is off and rolling, to kind of even just put that logo or whatnot on our materials and things of that nature, so folks can, when we're doing these pop-ups and such, that they can also look on the website. We'll also be at the resource fair, which is fantastic. I can't wait to be there again. But yeah, I think I just want to give you mad love, because I know that I saw the JIC firsthand and all that. That is not an easy task. Centralizing anything in the city is not easy at all. So I applaud you guys for doing this. Please let us know how we could support you on that, because I know how useful it can be. And again, thank you, Maria. You're correct. Like, it is going to be a multi-pronged approach. This is one way, one good way. Obviously there's several other ways, but happy to help on my end through my efforts with youth at DPH to help kind of build you guys out and build more awareness to it. So just, I'll connect with you offline, Dory, about that.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Looking forward to it.
All right, any other committee discussion on this item? All right, I just want to say I love to see the fruit of the Children and Family Recovery Plan. It's so nice to see it like forming now, and major props to being intentional about the human connection part behind it too, because I think, you know, as many other members have said, like sometimes info is spread through word of mouth, but then it ends with like, here's a website and there you go, and like sign up. But to know that there's going to be that, you know, part about connecting even beyond that website is like so awesome. And I love to hear the college savings workshop for the youth at the resource fair. Super cool. Okay, I think someone had their hand raised. I'm not sure. I can't seem to see. Okay.
Looks
Hi,
like
it's
Madison.
Madison. I just had a quick clarifying question. Is this like just city services or city funded services? So CBOs will be listed here too, or is this something we're going to be very involved? Like, Dory, how are you planning to like get all the CBO information uploaded into the website? Is that something we should prep our membership for, or just wanted to get some clarity on that?
Sure. So I'll just answer this really briefly. So we will have a lot of the CMS data that will be uploaded onto our 415 and a service inventory site. But what we will be doing is focusing on summer, all things summer. And with that said, we will be tapping into our different city partners and city funded partners for additional information to make sure that we have all that in that database. If it doesn't make to the database, it will be in the calendar and it will be in the feed. So what we are really proud of for this effort is that it will be highly curated.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you again, Dory, for the presentation.
Thank you.
All right. And we will move on to the next item, which is the report of the Service Provider Working Group. So Madison is already on as a panelist, and I believe Frederic is here as well. I just can't see. But I will hand it over to you, Madison and Frederic.
I see her
to
on
report.
Okay. I know, can someone promote Frederic, or can I do it?
Okay, there we go.
Okay, cool.
All right. Hello, everyone. Is Frederic here? Was she able? There we go. Okay. So good to see everyone. We were trying to think where we left off in our last update, and I think we shared with you all that we were hoping to give you all some exciting news from our group in the new year, and we are here today to share some exciting news. So I know we have a lot of new folks on this call. just as a little kind of recap, the Service Provider Working Group is an all volunteer-led group of DCYF grantees and youth service providers. And this is in addition to our 80-hour-a-week full-time jobs. And so one of the biggest barriers that we've faced has just been capacity and infrastructure for our group. We did receive some private funding to build up our infrastructure and to really push forward one of our largest priorities for the group, which is addressing wages, low wages, quality of life for youth service providers. And so we're super excited. We are in the strategic planning process of this part of the work. We have a team of 8 folks who have been in the Service Provider Working Group for probably like anywhere from 8 to 3 years now of experience in that group. So we're all working together to kind of figure out exactly how we are going to allocate and spend these funds and build up some long sustaining infrastructure for SPWG. Do you want to add anything to that, Frederic?
Going out to the topic of the strategic plan and capacity building work. What I can add to the report is, as we were trying to prep for this meeting, we realized there's some loose ends and follow-ups that we would love to hear from, whether now or circling back to the OAC committee. One of them has to do with the Student Success Fund and how that's occurring. Maybe Maria will talk about this later in her report, but that's something that a lot of our members are interested in seeing what is occurring and how is that going to manifest itself. Another loose end is the advocacy work that we usually do around budgeting. This is a loose end because we usually do COD B, cost of doing business effort. And with the controller's report that was released last year, there were some recommendations made, and wondering how this agency specifically is taking those recommendations in. And then last but not least, the timeline regarding the service allocation plan and the RFP. I had a little moment of panic when I saw the budget numbers. We were texting back and forth saying, what does this mean? You know, just getting a sense of how just some clarity for planning purposes. And I believe, Madison, there was a conversation we had about Summer Together, about that timeline. Last time, CBOs had not enough time. That was the feedback that our members gave us, and how to plan for it effectively.
Yeah, so I'll just add and kind of clarify too. These are a series of things that have been lingering for our memberships and just questions that we've been fielding from folks. So one of the main things around the service allocation plan, and we are in communication with Amiho, and he's going to join our February meeting. But one of the main things that's come up with our membership is really around making sure that there's ample time and people understand when it's going to start people applying, right? So if it's a 3-month process that we have to apply as CBOs, are we going to have a month to write these proposals? Are we going to have 3 weeks? And then also, what does that timeline look like in terms of decision making on DCYF's end, right? So if we know we as CBOs have 2 months to write proposals, DCYF has 2 months to make decisions, and then when are those decisions released, right? I'm just throwing out some random dates, Maria, you look right. And so yeah, people are just wanting clarity on that. So that's definitely something that we're hoping to work closely with Amiho on to make sure that the timeline feels good for everyone, especially for our smaller CBOs that don't have the infrastructure to really have a whole grant writing team and to make decisions around what they're applying for. And then for Summer Together, that wasn't super clear in the budget presentation. I don't know if you guys are expecting any sort of contributions or for Summer Together to happen again at all, but that's definitely a question that folks have had, is if people should be thinking about that, planning for potentially getting any additional funds for this summer, or if that partnership is over. So that was a series of long questions. We'll pause. Yeah, see if there's any answers here, or just if we want to follow up with folks individually.
Through the chair, I can answer a lot of those questions in my director's report.
Excellent. It's good to know we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah, definitely. I was like, did you take a peek at my talking points? You teed up my talking points perfectly. So that's
Awesome.
wonderful.
All right, thank you, Madison and Frederic. Raphael, is there any public comment on this item?
There are no public comments at this time.
All right, seeing none, public comment is closed. Is there any comment or questions from the committee on this report? And I know we will be returning to the questions, correct, Maria? Okay. All right. Oh, I realize it's me, Aaron, and John as members. So thank you, Frederic and Madison, and looking forward to the continued work on the infrastructure for SPWG and hearing back on some of the responses to the question shortly. Okay, thank you. And we will go to our 8th item on the agenda, which is the report of the OAC chair. So this item does require require a vote, but we just lost quorum. So Dory or Maria, can you help me out with this? Should we table this item or should I go through this item? Even though we cannot vote on it?
I would recommend that you just review the changes so that everyone gets a little bit of a refresher. And Raphael, would you pull up the bylaws document on page 40 and 41 in the packet to help Jada so that she doesn't have to read it all out loud?
Yeah.
And we could do a read along. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Give me 1 second here. I'm trying to pull. Okay, I got it. 1 second.
Thank you. Maybe Chair Jada, you can give a recap on the bylaws timeline.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so my report today is solely focused on the bylaws. During our last meeting in November, we tabled the actual vote on this item to just go ahead and approve our bylaws with some edits. So we were going to return today to vote, but there were about 3 edits that were proposed to be made at our November meeting. And some of them we accepted, and then some of them we wanted to just return back to. So
Dory, which page what was it again? I'm sorry.
Page 40 and 41.
Oh.
And then it's highlighted in yellow.
Okay, I'm sorry. There we go.
Okay, perfect. There it is. Okay, so the edits proposed last meeting to be made to the bylaws was to make it clear to always maintain a virtual meeting option and remote option if possible, which is the edit that you see here in yellow. So this edit now maintains that as long as the California Governor Code section 54953E, I believe that is, allows, we will maintain a virtual meeting option. So that was accepted, and that's what you see there highlighted in yellow. And then if we go to page 5, which I believe just the next page, it was recommended that we maintain 5 days in regards to changes in the agenda. And even though this has been recommended to go from 7 to 5, in discussion with the executive committee, we were still thinking of the time, we were thinking of the time constraint that may cause. So we were thinking to just keep it as 7. So that way it gives us as a committee, as an executive committee and staff to both discuss and get it approved in enough time leading up to a proposed meeting. So we want to keep that as 7 as opposed to 5. Even though the highlighted change does say 5. And then on page 6, we had a recommendation at the November meeting to maintain action items on the agenda. We will be keeping action items on the agenda as seen with today's agenda. So that will maintain. And that is pretty much all for the bylaws. Raphael, is there any public comment on this item?
No, there is no.
Okay, and even though we will not take a vote, is there any comment from the committee on my report? Any thoughts on the 5 versus 7 day notification period for agenda items at all? Any strong opposition to that? All right, that's good. Next, okay. So we will not be taking a vote, but so we can move on in that case to Maria's report, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Great.
Okay, perfect. So I'll hand it over to you, Maria.
Thank you, Chair Jada. So I was going to share with you a couple of things. One is just the funnest thing of all is that we will be having a summer resource fair February 11th at the County Fair building. So please, please, please come on out. You can volunteer and help us. But more importantly, just come and see and really just experience the energy that our San Francisco children and families bring at this event. It's going to be amazing. There are lots and lots of little surprises that Dory and the team have in the works. So I'm equally excited to come and see. So please join us February 11th at the County Fair building. And then more to mundane work. So I wanted to share the progress of the DCYF SAP report. And so as you all know, and thank you to the OAC for voting and approving the CNA, after we finish our community needs assessment, we move into what we call the services allocation plan. And now we are in deep development of the allocation plan. And part of the allocation plan process requires us to talk to our community members, as well as to key partners in the city, and finally to present a report to this body for this body to approve, which we then will take your approval of the final document and bring it to the Board of Supervisors for approval. Now, what happens really quickly is after all of these approvals happen, we turn this document into an RFP. So we essentially take the services allocation plan and turn it into an RFP so that we can then actualize the document. And I think this very quick timeline is the concern that our CBOs have. And so I totally understand why our CBOs and particularly our service provider working group wants to fully understand when the plan will be completed and when the RFP is going to be completed. So I want to share with everyone that number one, you all will get the opportunity for regular SAP updates starting next week through our grantee newsletter. So you'll see all the things that we're doing. You'll get all the dates of when things are happening. But as a preview, I will share with you that Amiho and the team will be presenting first round of SAP updates at the next OAC meeting, and that's scheduled for February 13th. We have, in partnership with the SPWG, scheduled a presentation of the SAP at their February convening, and that's, I believe, February 22nd. We're also scheduled to present the SAP to the Juvenile Justice Providers Association sometime in February. And we are planning on a big all grantee convening in early March, so that we can, if we don't catch our CBOs in any one of those convenings, we'll do it at the big all grantee convening in early March. So we believe with all of these different meetings and convenings and we're thinking about maybe even just recording one of these convenings and just posting it on the website so that just people who miss any of these in-person convenings will then be able to just go on the website and review it and watch it so that you stay up to date on all the things that we're thinking about. We will then bring back to the OAC draft number 2 in April. And the April OAC meeting, we're also thinking about perhaps previewing some of our highlights of the SAP that might turn into an RFP service area. So you'll start seeing this kind of side by side, you know, how the SAP is going to turn into an RFP. And so you'll start seeing that in April. In May, we'll bring the final draft of the SAP to this body for approval. Hopefully it will be approved. And then in June, we'll bring it over to the Board of Supervisors for approval. And then finally in July, we plan to release the RFP. So there's going to be a good 2 to 3 months of deep conversations that we all will have around the SAP. And when we released the RFP in July, we plan to have the RFP out on the streets for several months because we know that our CBOs are also expected to be running summer programs during that time. So we want to be very respectful of our CBO's time. So it'll be on the streets for a couple of months, and then we'll take another couple of months to do all the review process. We expect to receive a lot of applications as what we have every single time we do this. And so it's going to take a lot of time for us. That's why we feel that we have to release it in July so that we can be ready to then award and do all the grant making stuff so that July 1 of 2024, all the CBOs will have their grants in place. So we're giving ourselves a whole year to do this entire RFP process because it's not appropriate to rush this process. We need time, our CBOs need time. We want to be as thoughtful as possible. The other part of why we want to have as much time as possible is because we want to make sure that we're talking to our city departments, our school district, and city college so that we are all aligned or as aligned as possible so that we can leverage our resources, leverage our services, leverage our capacities so that we can really build a coordinated system of care for children. So we need that time to build that process. I hope that helps with some of the questions that Madison and Frederic has regarding the SAP and the RFP timeline. In regards to the budget, yes, that $16.9 million number is really scary. As I shared earlier, that number has a lot of one-time funds in it, as well as unconfirmed work orders from other city departments. So because we can't assume those work orders are coming in, we had to present to you what we know is true in our budget today. Once we present our final budget to you in February, that number is going to look very different. So just know that. Also know that we are not very nervous about trying to get to the reduction number, the $2.8 million number, because we believe that we will be able to get to that number for the mayor's office through cost savings from a lot of our different grants. And so there will be no service cuts to our CBOs. So I just want to be crystal clear to our CBOs and to the community that you know the direction from the mayor was to ensure that essential city services and essential city functions continue. and you've heard me say this before, our CBOs are essential. Our CBO workers are essential. You know, during the pandemic, we called them our essential frontline workers. And so you have my commitment to do whatever I can to make sure that we keep these services whole. At least the services that DCYF funds whole. In terms of COLAs and CODB, we are working very closely with the Controller's Office and with other city departments. The Controller has convened for the past year or two, city departments together to really think about how do we implement the COLA CODB request from our CBOs in a time efficient way. And you know, some of the recommendations that the controller made in that report was to allow greatest level of flexibility for our CBOs, to ensure that that city departments reduce additional burden on CBOs' time and administrative costs. So we believe that we've done that over the years in terms of our grant making work. But more specifically, we've been working with the controller and our city departments around other ideas of how we can perhaps institutionalize COLAs and CODBs moving forward. And we have this great opportunity in the RFP for the RFP to be able to maybe think about ways for us to institutionalize the CODB moving forward. So stay tuned for some exciting news about that. Like I said, we are working with the Controller's Office to try to figure out how to do that and what would that look like if we were to implement that through the RFP process. And then in terms of planning, more time for planning for Summer Together. Once again, thank you so much to all of our CBOs who work very closely with us to stand up a brand new program and initiative with almost no time for planning. So we acknowledge that, and thank goodness we are no longer in a pandemic. So we have a little bit more breathing room, a little bit more time to think and plan. And so very soon you'll start hearing from us regarding your summer grants, and I believe and just summer grants and planning for Summer Together. I think Madison made a comment about the philanthropic funds. So Sharice and I are still working with our philanthropic community around fundraising, so that we can make sure that we continue to have those dollars. But while we wait for those dollars, all of our CBOs should know that the dollars that DCYF committed for summer, for your grants for summer, is still there. And so you still have the DCYF dollars to run your summer programming. But stay tuned. You'll get more communication from Sharice Dorsey Smith, our Deputy Director of Programs and Grants, soon regarding Summer Together. I think I touched on all the questions that was raised. I don't know if there's anything else.
Something that I took note of, I'm not sure if this is a repeat, but the Student Success Fund.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah, so for Student Success Fund, so I think I shared with you in our last meeting, thank you so much to the citizens to the voters of San Francisco for passing that measure. And we will start seeing those dollars come into our budget, actually into this coming fiscal year. We're meeting with the school district and having conversations with the school district around how to implement these dollars. The intent and the purpose of the dollars is to support student outcomes and student outcomes in all, in the larger sense of, you know, whether that's a CBO coming in to provide supports, or SFUSD using the dollars to hire additional staff to provide supports for students, depending on what the needs are. So we are, I guess you can call it in early planning phase with the school district to understand what are all the different supports that are already in their schools. What does the funding for those supports look like? And then where are all the gaps? So as you can imagine, with 125 schools, that's a lot of analysis that has to happen. And so we've had several meetings already to start that conversation, and I will continue to just regularly update you on the progress of those things. So Madison asked, is the goal to distribute funds within this fiscal year? So the fiscal year that we are in now, we do not have access to those dollars now. Those dollars, the first portion of those dollars will come into our budget July 1, well, you know, in next fiscal year, for fiscal year 23-24. It's only a portion of those dollars. It's a portion of those dollars. So it's a 4-year ramp up to the full $60 million allocation. So year 1, it's $11 million. Year 2, I believe it's $35 million. And then year 3, it's an additional, and then year 4 is where you get the full $60 million. And it's $60 million ongoing for I forgot what the end year is, but it's not just a one-time fund. It's long-term, yes. And once again, it is so DCYF is the entity that manages the dollars, but we work closely with the school district to identify the schools, as well as to identify the types of services and needs that the school community has. So it could be anything from expansion of after-school programs to an expansion of a career awareness workforce program, to more mental health services, to literacy supports, to math supports. So there could be a combination of things that is both CBO specific and staff, like SFUSD staff specific.
All right. Thank you, Maria, for that report. A lot of information, but thank you for answering all of those questions. Let's see, Raphael, is there any public comment on this item?
There are no public comments at this moment.
Okay, I see Frederic has a question. Do you want to go ahead and?
Sure. So Frederic asked, by managing, and she's referring to the Student Success Fund, are you doing the RFP? So we will be doing some type of competitive is not the right word, but some type of solicitation. As you can imagine, school community would have a hard time writing an RFP proposal to us. But there is some process that would have to happen.
All right. Is there any comment from the committee on this report? All right, Madison, you can go ahead. Oh, I don't know what happened.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I just changed my view, so I got confused. Just one quick follow-up question, Maria. I want to be able to give clarity to our membership. If the goal is to release the RFP, going back, sorry, to the SAP and the RFP, if the goal is to release it in July, do you have a sense of like when final decisions will be made? Like, do you think it'll be 2 months of writing and 2 months of decision making, or Do you have any sense?
Oh, I don't know if I know that Sharice might not be available to talk right now. I don't want to confuse folks nor misspeak. So why don't you wait until we release the newsletter? Dory, when is the grantee newsletter coming out?
It will be this week.
So why don't you wait for the newsletter and we'll make sure that we can also speak a little bit about that in the newsletter.
Okay.
Amiho said, okay. Decisions will be coming out in early February. In February.
February
February.
of next year. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any comment from the committee? All right. Seeing none, we will move on. Thank you again, Maria, for answering all those questions and providing your report. So we are now at item 10, which is action items and adjournment. At this time, anyone feel free to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but we do not have any action items. Well, besides actually voting on the approval of the bylaws as they stand. Other than that, we do not have anything else. Yeah, nothing that I'm forgetting. Yeah, so we do not need to vote to adjourn. So thank you all for attending today's meeting. It is 4:20, so we will end here. And thank you all and have a good rest of your evenings.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Great job.
Thank you.